Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, the story continues to follow Lee and Tu Sam, unfolding with new developments that begin after a period that seemed peaceful and uneventful. In the previous episode, Lee and Tu Sam attended the housewarming party of James and Diep together. It was not a lavish or showy celebration, but simply a warm gathering of close friends who had walked alongside one another through many stages of life. The new house was not large, yet it was bright and cozy, just enough for people to clearly feel the joy of reaching a new milestone. The party itself was gentle and unhurried. Conversations revolved around work, family, unfinished plans, and ordinary moments of everyday life. There was no distance, no formality, only natural smiles and sincere wishes. Lee and Tu Sam blended into the atmosphere effortlessly, as if this were just another familiar evening within a long-standing circle of friends. At that time, James appeared unusually relaxed. He laughed more than usual, his eyes reflecting quiet happiness as he looked around his new home. Diep was the same, busy preparing food, pausing now and then to chat with everyone, her expression filled with unmistakable contentment. Everything felt so normal that no one could have imagined this was merely a rare moment of calm before a major storm. When the gathering came to an end, everyone gradually headed home. Lee and Tu Sam did not stay long either. On the way back, they talked about the warm atmosphere of the evening, about James and Diep's new house, and about the clear feeling that everyone seemed to be settling down, slowly finding their place in life. At that moment, there was not the slightest sense of unease. The days following the party passed quietly. Everyone returned to their routines, their work continuing as usual. The surroundings seemed to retain their familiar calm. Life moved forward slowly and steadily, with no sign that a disruption was approaching. Until, just a few days later, an unexpected piece of information began to surface. A serious economic case was officially expanded for investigation by the authorities. At first, the news appeared only in scattered mentions, briefly noted in short reports. But over time, the details became more frequent and more specific, and James's name began to surface with alarming regularity. James's company was found to show unusual signs in its accounting records. Documents pointed to the possibility of falsified figures, concealed revenue, and tax evasion over an extended period. The numbers shocked many, as James had long been regarded as a careful, reputable businessman with a solid professional image. The matter quickly went beyond a routine administrative inspection. The authorities decided to escalate the case into a criminal investigation. Professional measures were carried out continuously and intensively. James's company became the center of attention, with inspection teams coming and going, documents sealed, and employees summoned for questioning. James himself was called in to cooperate with the investigation. What began as prolonged working sessions soon led to a decision to temporarily detain him for investigative purposes. Once officially announced, the information spread rapidly. The news hit like a heavy blow, traveling at remarkable speed. Not only within the business world, where James had many connections, but also among his close friends, the incident caused a profound sense of shock. Those who had met him just days earlier, who had shared a table and exchanged laughter, now found themselves stunned by how abruptly everything had changed. No one had time to prepare. Everything happened too fast, too suddenly, as if in a single moment, James's life had taken a completely different turn. The images of the housewarming party remained vivid in many minds, making the present reality feel even harder to believe. And within the swirl of these relentless developments, James was not the only one drawn into the crisis. Those around him, people who had been close, who had shared bonds with him, began to feel the weight of the situation spreading outward, steadily and unmistakably. When Diep received the news that James had been arrested, she nearly lost her ability to stand. The moment came without warning, too sudden to comprehend. She froze in place, as if the ground beneath her feet had disappeared. All the sounds around her blurred into something distant and unreal. Only the cold words echoed relentlessly in her mind, repeating over and over with cruel clarity. Diep could not believe what she was hearing. She kept asking herself whether she had misunderstood, or whether someone had made a grave mistake. The man she knew better than anyone, James, had always been cautious in every decision, meticulous with every number, and uncompromisingly strict with himself at work. He never tolerated carelessness within the company, and he certainly never treated legal matters lightly. For that reason, the fact that he had been arrested, especially in connection with a serious economic crime, was something Diep simply could not accept. Familiar images flooded her mind. James sitting at his desk late into the night, the lamp casting light over neatly stacked files. James carefully reviewing reports, checking every line of data again and again just to ensure there were no mistakes. James once told her that long-term success could never rely on luck, and that reputation should never be traded for shady shortcuts. These memories overlapped, colliding with one another, making the news she had just received feel utterly illogical. Yet no matter how much she refused to believe it, Diep could not deny the reality unfolding before her. The truth was cold and merciless, leaving her no time to escape. Confusion quickly turned into despair. She felt as though she had been pushed into a vast emptiness, with nothing around her to hold on to. Her thoughts spiraled, tangled and chaotic, stripped of all order. She did not know what to do next, whom to turn to, or whether she even had the strength to face what lay ahead. Her phone rested in her hand, but she was too shaken to call anyone. The contact list was long, yet not a single name appeared clearly in her mind. After a long internal struggle, between enduring everything alone and reaching out for help, Diep ultimately chose to go to Lee and to Sam. They were the friends she trusted, the ones calm enough to listen and rational enough not to judge her at her most vulnerable. That evening, Diep stood in front of Lee and to Sam's house. Night had fully fallen, and the warm yellow porch light revealed the exhaustion etched across her face. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying too much. She looked visibly thinner, her shoulders slumped, each step heavy, as though she was using every last bit of strength just to remain standing. When to Sam opened the door, she paused for a brief moment. Diep did not need to say a word. One look at her expression and her eyes was enough for to Sam to understand that something very serious had happened. She immediately pulled Diep inside, her movements gentle and careful, as if even the slightest force might cause Diep to collapse completely. The atmosphere in the living room grew heavy with silence. Diep sat down on the sofa, her hands tightly clasped together, her knuckles pale. It took a long time before she could speak. Her voice trembled and broke, each sentence draining what little strength she had left. Through choking sobs, Diep told them everything. James had been arrested. His company was under investigation. Accusations of falsified accounts and tax evasion were emerging one after another, closing in on her family from all sides. She spoke in a state of panic, her words tumbling over each other without order, but it was more than enough for Lee and to Sam to grasp the severity of the situation. Diep did not ask for miracles. She did not expect anyone to promise they could fix everything. What she needed in that moment was simply someone willing to sit and listen, someone willing to believe that James might not be guilty. Just a small fragment of faith, something she could cling to in order to keep standing. Lee sat across from her, quietly listening to the entire story. He did not interrupt, nor did he rush to offer any conclusions. His gaze grew heavier, his expression more serious than usual. As a police officer, Lee understood all too well how complex economic crimes could be, especially cases involving accounting and taxation. These were never simple matters, nor ones that could be resolved quickly. Because he understood this, Lee was especially careful with his words. He knew that even a single careless sentence could either give Diep false hope or push her deeper into despair. So he chose to be honest, but not cold. Lee explained clearly that James's arrest at this stage was merely an initial investigative measure. It did not determine guilt or innocence. In cases like these, the truth was often concealed with great sophistication, and the head of a company was not always the person directly responsible for wrongdoing. Many layers needed time to be peeled back, each detail carefully examined. Lee looked directly at Diep, his eyes steady and unflinching. His voice was firm and clear, yet sincere enough for Diep to feel the weight of his words. He told her that if James was innocent, he would pursue the truth to the very end. The truth deserved to come to light, and justice had to be returned to those who did not deserve blame. Diep listened silently. Each of Lee's words slowly sank in. Her tightly clenched hands gradually loosened, even though the anxiety remained. At the very least, in that moment, Diep knew she was not completely alone in the face of the looming crisis that was beginning to pull everything into its vortex. Hearing Lee's words, Diep finally could not hold herself together any longer. The tears she had forced herself to suppress since receiving the devastating news, since the moment she tried to remain composed in front of everyone, now quietly spilled over. There was no loud sobbing, no hysterical cries, no dramatic breakdown. Only silent tears falling heavily, one after another, carrying exhaustion and pain. Diep lowered her head. Her breathing grew shallow and uneven, her shoulders trembling faintly, as if the last remnants of her strength were slowly draining away. In that moment, Diep no longer tried to appear strong. She no longer had the energy to maintain the image of a calm, rational wife. In front of Lee and Sam, she was simply a woman overwhelmed by fear, confusion, and complete helplessness in the face of a catastrophe that had come crashing down on her life without warning. Sam sat beside her, quietly observing. She did not rush to speak, nor did she offer hollow words of comfort. Instead, she gently reached out and took Diep's hand. The grip was neither tight nor urgent, but it was warm enough to convey a very real sense of reassurance. It was a silent message: Diep was not facing this alone. Sam moved a little closer, her voice lowered, each word spoken slowly and with care. She did not promise that everything would soon be resolved, nor did she offer distant, unrealistic hopes just to soothe the moment. She simply advised Diep to try to remain calm, because only with clarity and strength could she endure the difficult days ahead. She reminded Diep not to neglect herself, not to let worry and fear slowly consume her from within. And most importantly, Sam told her that no matter how deeply the truth might be buried, no matter how tangled everything seemed, the truth would eventually surface. It might not come quickly. It might demand immense patience and endurance. But the truth could not be hidden forever. Those words did not erase the anxiety weighing heavily on Diep's heart. But they helped her feel that she was no longer abandoned in the middle of the storm. At her weakest, most fragile moment, the presence of Lee and Sam, their willingness to listen and their genuine understanding, became a rare source of emotional support, allowing Diep to keep standing, even if only one small step at a time. After that meeting, Lee officially stepped deeper into James's case. This was no longer simply concern from a friend, nor merely a promise spoken during an emotional moment. Lee approached the matter with the full responsibility of a police officer. He understood that once he committed himself to this case, every move had to be made with absolute caution. A single small mistake, a single rushed judgment, could distort the truth in ways that might never be corrected. Lee began to re-examine every document related to the investigation. Financial reports, numerical tables, accounting records, each file was reviewed carefully. The figures themselves seemed dry and lifeless, but when placed side by side, troubling irregularities began to emerge. Some entries did not align across different periods. Certain reports had been edited multiple times without reasonable explanations. Several tax-related items contained vague gaps, left insufficiently clarified. The deeper Lee went, the more he realized that this was not a case that could be understood through a few initial pages of documentation. The irregularities appeared scattered rather than concentrated, as if deliberately arranged to mislead investigators. Every small detail could be a crucial clue, or merely another layer of disguise concealing a far more complex truth beneath. Lee understood the nature of economic crimes all too well. In such cases, the boundary between right and wrong was rarely clear-cut. The truth was often buried beneath layers of numbers, overlapping relationships, and decisions that appeared legitimate on paper. And in situations like this, the head of a company was often the first to be targeted, even when they were not necessarily the one who directly committed the violations. Because he understood this, Lee refused to act hastily. He knew that without calm judgment and patience, the truth could easily be twisted. An innocent person could become a scapegoat for those hiding behind the scenes, while the real perpetrators remained safely concealed. Was James truly involved in falsifying accounts and evading taxes? Or was he merely the figurehead, used, manipulated, and pushed forward to bear responsibility for actions he did not directly commit? Amid growing pressure from his work, from the pace of the investigation, and from the suspicious eyes surrounding him, could Lee maintain the objectivity required of him? And when friendship intertwined with professional duty, would he have the resolve to pursue the truth to the very end? Meanwhile, Diep continued to endure days filled with quiet, gnawing uncertainty. Each passing day carried an undercurrent of anxiety, as her family's future remained suspended, unanswered. The silence, the waiting, and the questions without replies slowly became a burden she had to bear alone. Everything still lay ahead. Stay tuned for the next episode. To continue following the story of Lee, to Sam, James, and Diep.
Xin chào mọi người. Cảm ơn mọi người đã xem hết video hôm nay của mình. Chúc mọi người có một ngày mới vui vẻ, hạnh phúc và một ngày làm việc tràn đầy năng lượng. Hy vọng rằng những video của mình sẽ giúp mọi người vui vẻ và thư giãn sau một ngày làm việc mệt mỏi. Và những câu chuyện của mình cũng tạo động lực cho mọi người trong cuộc sống. Hiện tại thì những video của mình đang được phát hành vào khung giờ 7 giờ tối. Nếu mà mọi người yêu thích những câu chuyện về những người mẹ đơn thân của mình thì nhớ bấm like và nhớ bật chuông thông báo để nhận thông báo khi mình đăng video mới nhất, để không bỏ lỡ những video mới mà mình mới đăng tải. Hiện tại thì mình đã được đăng tải khá nhiều video và cũng đã đồng hành cùng mọi người một thời gian khá dài. Hy vọng mọi người vẫn sẽ yêu thích và đồng hành cùng mình trong thời gian sắp tới. Hẹn gặp lại mọi người ở trong những video tiếp theo của mình nha.